Hey, it's Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it is Tuesday. It's September 13th, and this will be our chart lesson for the day. And man, what a day! I don't even know how big this day is overall, but it's a huge day. 237 points from high to low. I mean that even makes this day. This day was pretty close to that. Hmm. So yeah, this day was even quite a bit larger than that sell-off. So, um, I mean, this felt a little odd the last couple of days for it to rally that strongly. I was a little surprised. I wasn't quite sure if my read was going to be right here, but you got to trust the charts. Everything's saying we're going lower, and I mean, we really took most of this entire day back in a minute and a half, in less than a minute and a half. Continued on lower after that, but it took most of this. It took really these 3 days of rally back in less than a minute and a half on the inflation news. I mean, there's just nothing good. There's no reason for this market to rally. There's nothing economically good. Interest rates, we know. I mean, they almost are forced to have to raise them to stop the inflation, and they're continuing to print money. So the market has nowhere to go but lower, and so all of this rally feels contrived to me. It didn't, especially this bounce here, it didn't feel natural. And you can see it didn't take, maybe they knew it was going to be a bad news and they were preparing for a big sell off, trying to fake everybody out. Who knows? But anyway, it didn't feel right. And you can see that, man, it was just an ugly day. I don't know any other way to describe that except that's an ugly, ugly day. And you can see we still got a long way to go to reach the lows. And even then, if this channel is valid, it doesn't mean the sell-off is over. So um, maybe this bigger channel is not valid, and we're only looking at this smaller one. And if we retest these lows, it's over, and then we could rally from there. I could get into a rally at that point, or at least a strong bounce, because we really never have confirmed this blue channel. We didn't quite even get back to it here. So I mean, it looks valid. Looking at the midlines, it looks very valid. But not even getting back to the trend line there makes me think this thing was super weak, and so that's why this rally was a little odd here. But anyway, my gut feel was right. We're still going lower. And I mean, today we get a couple of days like today, and it wouldn't be long at all to we're at the lows again. It's very rare that you see put together multiple days like that. But don't forget about this sell-off here. Uh, we took, in 3 days basically back here we moved 400 points. Single contract would have been worth $20,000 if you could catch a move like that. So it's scary though holding a move like this overnight. Um, but that's why I like to, on this longer term stuff, use your use your options. And that's the way to go. And that way you only got limited liability, and the upside potential is still there, but you limit your downside possibilities. And so that's the way I like to trade those, because it's really hard for a small trader that doesn't have deep, deep pockets, or is not willing to risk deep pockets, to trade the daily charts and hold through these moves, because you would have to think we probably weren't done here, although we were at the lows. But you would never. Excuse me, I'm still having little throat problems when I try to talk a lot. My throat gets to bother me. But anyway, you would never expect to have this kind of rally here after that sell-off. I mean, yeah, you would expect, hey, we're way overdone. We expect a rally, but you don't expect this. This feels really contrived to me. Uh, but anyway, so if you trade options, you got a lot better opportunity to benefit from this stuff without risking too much. So keep that in mind. Look at your options. There's some great opportunities and options. But anyway, you can see the day here. We're going to flip over to the intraday chart and show you what it looks like. There were two measured legs down, and then we actually went a little further than that, which is no surprise on a day like this. This is generally the kind of day you see on a capitulation type day, and but I don't think we're done yet. I wouldn't surprise me to see us bounce because we're almost oversold, and we went from overbought to almost oversold in one day, and that's very rare. So, um, we could see a little consolidation or even a bounce now, but I still think we got a long way to go before we're at the bottom yet. So anyway, let's flip over to the other. All right, here it is, and I'm having to really squeeze it in, but we had this first leg down, and then we corrected here, and that was the next high point. So we'd look for a measured leg down, which gives you this target right here, and you can see we went a little further than that before we corrected some, and pretty much came back to the midline here. Or we're headed towards the midline anyway, so but that's a big picture look at it. And I marked a lot of trades here. I only marked pretty much sure things because there's just so many trades. There's probably a lot more that could. I didn't mark any green ones; just wasn't worth the time. There's tons of green ones in here. There's maybe a few more you might argue is red, but I just marked the pretty much what I felt were obvious trades that were sure things. And you had to be patient today. Even though there's a lot of movement here, um, there wasn't a lot of opportunity to get in this thing. So anyway, really, I think you're better off the way that this CPI stuff is basically based on inflation, and they got a big surprise on the inflation, much worse than what they were expecting. So until the inflation issues are over with, I would be flat going into this CPI stuff. And you can see that's what the blue is here. So I didn't mark anything during that. Let's zoom in here just a little bit more. And there really wasn't. You could have traded this if you wanted to trade the news, but I think it's too risky. And then you certainly don't want to go short way down here after the market has moved. Really. 52 points, because it could easily rebound on you. It doesn't. It continues going lower and has a big move, and then we're just kind of working sideways before it heads lower again. So the first real opportunity I saw to enter was on this little rally right here. And it's more sideways than anything. You could have played this either way, sideways. You could have played it like a little range here too. Either way, I think you're good playing this. The range is probably the better play, but it's a little failed break out of the range and small bar, relatively bearish. You'd expect prices to come back down and test the lows. But there is a little bit of a trend up here, and you get a close outside new high. So however you looked at it, it's the same thing. And unfortunately, there's no other chance to enter this. It just the bottom drops out of it. You can't go short into these lows, and you don't get a breakout pullback or anything. And you drop down, and then you're working sideways again. And I would be scared to death to try to buy this thing. So I don't have a single buy marked all day long, because you're looking for a possible measured move that's many points lower than where prices are trading in here. We're trading at 40.39, and we have a measured move way down here at 39.60 something, or 39. I'm not sure what that is, 39.60 something anyway. So you got to be real careful. You definitely don't want to be buying. And I didn't even see anything in here I'd want to buy. There's a second entry right here, but it's not a very good setup. It turns out to be a good move. and you're looking for a retest of this high, maybe, but this has been so weak it could just turn down. But there's no short here or long, and there is a reversal here. It's on the wrong side, so again, I don't think you can take it, and it just drops down. And we're really almost working sideways. Even though this has a downward bias, you can see it flipping both ways. So technically you could trade it both ways, but I just think it's too risky. Um, Here again, we've got this green channel. You do get a close outside the new high, and you try to go higher multiple times, 3 times, but you just can't go short right into that support. And there's no lower. By the time you get a lower high, um, I don't think you want to go short right into that low, and you definitely don't want to go short below this because you see what happens to you. Um, Again, we reverse back up, and finally you get a close outside a new high and a fairly decent bar that's way away from the EMA. So maybe you take that one. This one I considered, especially on the lower high. I didn't mark it. I'll probably go back and mark that one because you do have the 2 legs up here, and that's a lower high that breaks higher first and turns down. I don't think there may be still enough room there to go short below that bar, but I'd probably trade this one on the engulfing right there to make sure I had plenty of room. And there is the failed second entry long, but it's on the wrong side of the EMA. In a serious downtrend where you're looking for a retest of this low at a minimum, you could possibly still take that trade, but I just think there's you're going to have to wait because you'll get better trades, and then you have to wait a while because you finally get this one close outside new high, and being that far away from the EMA, I'd take that. There's a lower high here, but I think that's a little bit far to call that a lower high. It was an engulfing bar too, so I don't think you want to take it. And of course we drop on down. There's a correction here. There's no setup there. I didn't draw. Somebody will probably ask me why I didn't draw it. It didn't come into play, so I didn't draw it. You do get a lower high here. Turns higher. Look very bearish. And that's also a second entry short. First entry, second entry when it breaks lower right there. So I like that trade. And that turns out to be a pretty good trade. If you catch that one trade, you probably get a runner on it and ride that all the way down. Maybe you're done for the day. I always tell people the rare times that I would say it's okay to overtrade or to take more trades, and generally you want to take 2 to 3 trades a day, and that's it. The one time I would say you might take more trades is when you get a sell-off day like today, but there were just so many times that the market's just doing nothing here, and it's pretty tricky. So I don't see anything in this whole sideways stuff here that I like. Maybe this trade, but it made a new high. See, it's higher than all these others, so there's a chance it could go higher still. So I think you need to wait on a lower high there, and you don't get it. But finally you break out of here, and you get a channel, a close outside, a new high. And this was an engulfing bar. I did mark this one green. I would not go short below this bar right here because it's not bearish enough, but it broke higher first and turned down. And you may take that on an engulfing bar, just trying to ride it back to the EMA, and maybe you get lucky and it continues lower. But I draw my trend line off those first 2 swings, which this is the second swing. So this one was tempting too. I did not mark it, but if you pick that, I should probably mark that green. I didn't want to fool with anything green because there's so many trades. But you might take that trade. It's still within the trend line. It is a little pull back to the EMA and the retest of the inside of the range it holds. So odds are we'll probably test this low even if we don't go much lower. And then we come back again here. Again, this makes a new high on these breakouts across here. Notice it's higher than that one and higher than that one and that one and that one. But you got the little channel working up, and you get a close outside a new high, and it reverses. So I like going short on that one. As long as you got room to get out before the support, you could take that. I don't see anything else here you could take. And unfortunately, this confirms that trend line with no setup. Maybe, if you weren't in the range, maybe you say it tried to go higher once, twice. But it's just too much sideways stuff. I think you're really pushing it. And you just don't know that it's going to do this. And then after that, there's no chance to really enter it. So it's a shame, but then of course you rally here, and this is like a little spiking channel. So draw this channel, and if you got something, if you got a second entry off of it, maybe with a good setup, but you don't get one. And then you get a little correction here, close outside, move to a new high, and a big bearish bar. I like going short on that one because you do have at least, you know, you're trying to make a retest of this low, and you know this is played out. So you got a little more on your odds on your side. There's a lower high here, but by that time that's pure congestion. It does drop on down, and then you can clearly see the two legs there, and then so that's a failed second entry long, and I like that one if it breaks lower. And there's a little bit of another channel here. I mean, there's some kind of trend line or something working here. I marked this one just because you got a new high, you try to go higher once, twice, and it is a downtrend. Very bearish bar, and that's another fairly decent move, although it bounces. It actually just kind of goes sideways here. Then you get this breakout, and it does turn down again right off this channel, this trend line channel trend line, and that's a really bearish bar. And it is a failed breakout of this range too. So I like trading that one because you got a couple of different reasons to expect this to turn down here. What you might do is let this break lower and drop a limit order back in here to try to get a little better entry. And you could have, but I mean, there's enough room to these lows anyway. You can see that. So maybe you take that one either way. And again, there's just no buys here. You're just looking for shorts. And you might have looked at this as a triple test, but it looks really congested. We've already got a break of this channel and a new low, so we may work back over to this trend line, which is what happens. I just think that's too congested to look at that as a triple test. And you get another test or two here, but it's just sideways stuff. And then suddenly you get this little trend. So now you got a convincing close outside this bigger channel, but you also got the bigger blue channel in place. It's somehow gotten moved. Anyway, I'll put that back. Let me zoom back in here. But now you got the close outside. You're moving up. You get a close outside this green one, move to a new high, and you get this little, it looks like it's going to trap the shorts, and it breaks higher and turn. Look how bearish that is, way away from the EMA. I like that to ride it back. And this thing just keeps, you probably don't get a runner here. It does come back and probably get your runners, unfortunately, but that's a nice move down. So it's a shame you don't get another chance to enter that. But it runs down, it finds support here, and next thing you know, again, this is trending up, but look how it's swinging back and forth above and below the EMA. That's mixed trading. And so you technically could go short off this side. I didn't mark any of them because we're probably headed back to this trend line. But there's a couple of them in here you might have taken. This one particularly because there's plenty of room back to the EMA. The reason I didn't mark it was because we bounced off the midline the last couple of times, and this last time we came off the high and we didn't get back to the low, then the midline held, so that made me think it's getting a little stronger, but it turned out to be a good move. But it's probably one you should skip. Same thing here, that was just a really big bar. It closed above the EMA, and so if it breaks lower, it could trap you there. So I don't see anything worth shorting there, and you don't want to go long still. But notice how we run up here, and you get this overshoot, and it's also a close outside this main trend line. And then you get a lower high right there, a big bearish bar. I like that one. Then there's the reversal here. And that's another good move. I really was hoping that would drop on and take off, but it didn't. But still, they're they're easy scalps, and you just continue to chop lower. There is a second entry and a lower high there. Most of the time, I would not even glance at that. I'd say it's too sideways, too much support. But this is a strong sell-off day. This is the first break of this main blue channel, because this is like a spiking channel. It spikes down and goes into this flatter channel. So on a day like this, um, maybe you take that trade. It could be considered a lower. It also could be considered a reversal, but it's not back to the EMA. But it's just such a bearish day that maybe you take that trade. If you took that trade, I'd probably say on most days I'd probably scold you for it, but on today probably not. We continue to drop on down. And originally I had the channel drawn down here, and we kept getting these overshoots. So then you have to think, hey, this is probably a two-tiered or something. But notice a little rally here, close outside. We try to go higher twice, and you get this right off that main trend line, bearish bar. It is a little congested, but again, you've been seeing this all the way down. So, and it's off the key entry point and the EMA, and this turns out to be, again, you may not get a runner here because it comes back first, but then it takes off. So if that wasn't an inside bar, if that would have broke higher, I'd tell you go short right there. But it just didn't give you a shot at it. And then down here, I don't think you want to enter. I mean, you could, again, this is a really bearish day, so you could technically draw this short-term stuff like so. And you can see pretty much any time it gave you a good signal bar off that trend line, you could go short. I mean, and I tell you that on strong trends. I mean, that doesn't look like it. This doesn't look like it because there's all these little bars. But look at all the stems, all the little dojis. That is a very, even though it doesn't look like it, that is a very strong trend. So if you understand that, you could have taken any one of these signal bars. Oops. Off the trend line that made a new high. Any one of them. And you'll notice they all would have worked. I mean, you really, any one that was a good bearish bar off of it, you could have taken. But I usually like to at least see them make a correction or a higher. In other words, they tried to go higher and broke higher than a previous bar. And then really, I didn't mark this one either, but it's kind of the same thing. The problem is the first close outside, so it could have pushed higher, and we did just come off the low, so you're looking for prices to come back here. So I did not mark that one. Same thing here, you got a triple test almost here, but look how congested. And we can't even get back to the trend line. This thing just keeps getting weaker. But I don't see any setups in here, and you're getting real late in the day. This last one was a breakout pullback short, but you got to go long short at the very low of the day, just before 2:30, and we've bounced off this low a couple times, and we're overdue to come back to the trend line. But that's another one you could argue to be green right there, because it's technically a failed second entry long too. But you can see we ended up overshooting this and running down a little longer, and now we've kind of reversed out of there, and we're still trending higher. There's like a little spike and channel up here now. So, and you can see that we spike up and go into this channel, and we were finding support here, mainly probably because that's pretty close to your measured move. People were taking profits here. Every time it failed to go lower, there probably some more profit taking would come in, and eventually, I guess enough people took their profit, there wasn't any more buying, and it just starts selling off again. And you get people that do try to pick bottoms on this stuff too, on these measured moves, and that's always dangerous, especially in congestion. Because you're just if you buy in there or sell in there, you're asking for trouble because it could have gone either way. There's no way to know where prices are going from here. In fact, everything is saying they should at least come back to the trend line. So it's just a shot in the dark to try to buy that or sell it. But let me back out, and there it is again. And again, there were a lot of other green ones you could have gone with back here, and there might even be one or two that you could argue for that might even be red. But I just went with the pretty much obvious ones. There's just so many trades. It's just hard to really, we're already 25 minutes, and I probably could have talked for another 25 minutes about a day like this, and it just gets too monotonous and too long. This already takes up an hour and a half of my day every day, so it gets a little monotonous to try to do much more on a strong day like this with this many setups and this much price action. I mean, this is a very high volume here. I mean, notice early in the morning it was low volume again, but once this sell-off started, the volume's coming in here now. So a little bit more volume than what we've been getting the last. You can see how much bigger, how much wider today is versus yesterday or Friday. So the volume has really picked up today. And that's to be expected on a day like today. So anyway, hope you had a good trading day. Hope you took advantage of the sell-off, but you could get whipsawed here really easy on these kind of days. I mean, the real sell-off didn't really get strong again until on this move down here, and it got really strong. I showed you those little. It doesn't look like it, but this is a real strong trend. All these little bars with lots of dojis and lots of stems that just keep going lower, and there's really what characterizes your corrections are very weak. They don't go more than a couple of bars. I mean, this was there was a two-legged move in here, so you might have even looked. I didn't talk about this, but you might have even looked for two measured legs there. The market was actually much weaker than that. But you can see, even though it shot through that measured move, it corrects back to it and chops around a little bit before it heads lower again. And it just continued on. I mean, this is a rare. This doesn't look like it. I mean, if you look at it like this, it does. But if you just zoom in here and look, and and you're watching this in real time, this doesn't look so weak. But that is a very. Look at all the little. Look how the corrections can't really go more than a bar or two higher, and you get stems on both sides, lots of little dojis, lots of little small bars. It doesn't look it, but that's a very, very strong trend. So just remember that, because you'll see that, and you'll see those to the upside as well. But anyway, we're almost 30 minutes here. I'm going to wrap this up. I'm done for today. We'll be back again tomorrow. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.